Today is Saturday, April 13th, 2024, and this is What's Happening Dracut. It's our 62nd episode. I'm John Zimini. I'm your host for this afternoon, this morning, and this is the place where you're going to hear all of the things that you can't hear anywhere else or won't hear anywhere else. What's Happening Dracut is an informational show that will bring you all the information as much as we can, and we're coming to you from our overly ostentatious studios here on Mill Street in Dracut, and we love to have you join in by calling us at our phone number, if they put it up there, and because I remember it, but I'm getting old, it's old age, 978-957-4243. Call us and join in the conversation. We have a couple of special guests with us tonight, and we're going to hope to keep this conversation alive, stimulating, and informational. First of all, I want to introduce my co-host on the show, the overly Teflon Don of Dracut, is Gordy Scott, who's in the house tonight.
Hey everyone, how's everything?
How you doing?
I'm doing good.
How's the missus, more important than you?
She's doing good. She said she's going to watch the show. She wants to see Mr. Plummer speak.
Good.
And then she's going to go to the gym after that.
Oh, good.
So.
Well, people come here, to find out what's going on.
Well, I think
they come here to watch the candidates.
And as you know, my wife is not a political person, but she realizes this is probably the most important selectman's vote that we've had in our lifetime since we've lived at Dracut for 25
Other than the
years.
one when you voted for me.
Yeah, obviously. No, so we were really undecided still. So we don't know.
Sure. Sure, and that's why we bring these kinds of shows.
Right.
And of course, we have with us tonight the guy that nobody that's in power today,
the architect extraordinaire,
wants any part of, because he has a mind and he has an opinion, and he's our resident architect here in Dracut. And it's Phil Thibault.
Hey, how are you?
How many committees have you been on over the years?
Oh, it might be easier to say the ones I haven't been on.
Yeah,
honestly.
exactly.
But I mean, there's a few now, building committee and NEMCOG, but that's about it.
But you've been like a resident member of the building committee for many years.
So I've been on the building committee for, I would say, 17 years now.
Wow.
And I'm still the junior member.
Really?
Yes, I am.
Who's the senior member there?
That may be Ellis Neofatistis, who is chair.
Ellis has been there for many years.
Wonderful
good
gentleman.
Guy, by the way, and a real gentleman. All business, no politics involved.
Well, that's a nice thing about that particular committee, that there really are no politics. It's, let's do the best job for the town. Let's watch out for the town's dollars. And, I think when Jim Duggan came to town and we were at the town hall, he had mentioned that our committee seems that we could, for every quarter we have, we get $1 worth of value. So
Yeah, very good. And so again, you can find us on Dracut Access Television, and we'll show the show several times during the week. But you can also follow us on Facebook. There's a lot of people, I'm sure, on Facebook Live. I didn't put it up.
I think we have up to nearly a dozen.
That's good. And before the show's over, there'll be well over 30, 35. By the way, I was watching Giuliani, Mayor Giuliani, the other day on Facebook, and he had like 15 people. He's live. I mean, is there a bigger figure around? And he only had 15 people, and we have 35 last week, right? I'm saying, wow, it's amazing. Not that I'm comparing us to them, but we all have egos here on this show. So you can't run something like this or run for public office if you don't have a little bit of an ego. So anyways, join us on Facebook Live. We also do
a YouTube channel. If you want to watch us after the fact, if you don't have a smart TV, or you have a smart TV with just YouTube, you can catch our show on YouTube. Just search for What's Happening Dracut, and you'll find us there.
And please like us on Facebook and follow us on Facebook.
How many followers do we have?
We have about
3,500?
3,500. We're almost 30. We're about 40 away from 600. 3,600. Yeah, so we've been growing, and that's what we want to do.
We started with 0, remember?
We started with 0, absolutely, and nobody thought we would survive, right?
Right.
So, okay, so let's just get into a little bit more things. What current events are coming up? We have another debate coming up, or a forum.
I believe it's a forum. It's a meet and greet, from my understanding, hosted by CARD, Citizens Against Reckless Development in Dracut.
Good group, by the way.
Where all three candidates are going to be there and make themselves available essentially for questions from the general public, which is nice.
That's good. And we also have town elections, right? But we got to keep pushing.
May 4th, a Saturday. There is early voting,
Yes.
which is a nice thing too, but May 4th is the election.
And that's also Star Wars Day.
Yeah.
May
It
the
is.
4th
May
be
the
with you.
4th
May
be
the 4th
with
be
you.
with you. And if you want to find out early voting dates and times, you can find that on our Facebook page. We have a listing of all that information for you. At this time, I want to talk about a little bit of a condolences. We want to send our best wishes and our sincerest condolences to the Popowski family. Lenny has been a mainstay here in Dracut for many, many years. His wife, Doris, passed away the other day after a bout with cancer. And we send our best regards out to Lenny and his family. And Phil, you also have...
Yes, actually, somebody from Chelmsford who is very well regarded within the Merrimack Valley itself, George Zaharoulis Sr. has passed away. So condolences certainly to his family. I had served with George at NEMCOG, as George was the Lowell Planning Board representative, and I was certainly from Dracut. So great gentleman.
He used to be on the radio known as the Bear.
Yes, J Mac and the Bear.
J Mac and the Bear, and I met him when I ran 20 years ago or so, and he's a great guy. Great guy. We've been friends forever, and I also attend those dinners. And always enlightening, a very smart guy, very affable, and a guy that anybody could talk to.
Sorely missed. He'll be sorely
He will
missed.
be sorely missed. Our condolences to the family. So with us tonight, we have our second candidate for selectman here in Dracut, and his name is Don Plummer. He serves on a couple of committees here in Dracut, if I'm correct. And he was a businessman for a while and worked for Oracle. And we're going to open up and say good morning to you. How are you, Don?
Good
Welcome
morning,
to the show.
John. It's good to be here. Thank you.
We're
Thanks for
very
having
glad
me.
to have you here. And, some people don't want to come on the show because we're maybe deemed a little controversial, which is okay. And but we try to hit questions that other people may not want to be asked. So I'm sure you'll do fine here today. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, thank you. First of all, I've watched a couple of your shows, and I found myself violently agreeing with many of the things you said.
Yay.
Yeah.
And I am definitely the outsider in this current Selectmen Board's election. And, in terms of my background, I have lived in Dracut for 40 years, but I also, like many of the people in Dracut, was using Dracut as kind of a bedroom community, working for IBM and Oracle and originally Wang Labs right out of college. I was living on airplanes and pretty much sleeping in Dracut. So I retired in July, and I started, going out to coffee once in a while, and I'm learning about the interesting history of Dracut politics. And I just felt like I've got the time. I'm not a golf player, and nobody I've played with has ever called me a golfer. So I decided to investigate this, and I think we are on the brink of the most important Dracut Selectmen's decision in 10 or 20 years. I mean, I'd go back to the Jack Titilio race, who was a neighbor of mine. And so 40 years as a resident, 8 years I've been on CPC and really starting to get my education in the town and how things work. I raised 3 children with my wife Renee up off of Marsh Hill Road. She's a CPA in town. Very busy right now with tax season. She knows lots of people. Because I was always heading for the airport, I don't know a lot of people, but I'm learning.
Well, the name is out there because of Renee, and she's been involved in the town quite a bit over the years. I know she managed a couple of campaigns over her lifetime span and what have you. So let's get right into some of the questions, okay?
Sure, you bet.
And what board are you currently on?
CPC.
CPC, which is, for those of you that don't know, that's a state fund that we contribute to, and we get money through the percentage of our taxes. It's on your tax bill. It's a great program, and when we first started, we got 100% reimbursement. I was a big, Warren Shaw was a big supporter of that, and as was I. And, it's been a great thing for the town, but I'm kind of feeling as though sometime down the line it could change. That, if the wrong people get their hands on it and enough of legislatures start opening that up, we'll lose what the main intent is for that.
There's no doubt that the legislature is looking at the sources of those matching funds and thinking, it would be better spent on housing people that aren't from Massachusetts.
Right, exactly. So, Dawn, your opponents, both of your opponents have said they're not for an override. Let's get right out of the box and talk about the big picture here, the big elephant in the room, and that's the budget problems that we're in, right? So we have a $3 million budget problem for this fiscal year, and beyond that, we have another $10 million extending 3 or 4 years down the line. What sets you apart on this particular issue, or any issue concerning the budget stuff?
Well, look, John, I am definitely not for raising anyone's taxes. I mean, anybody that's gone, grocery shopping knows how tight things are for us, for the citizens. It's obviously tight for the town. I think there's a process where the Board of Selectmen is going to be asked to support an override. Mm-hmm. And strangely, that's being driven by our town manager as opposed to the other way around. But we're going to be asked to do an override, and it's in the context of not really understanding where all the money we currently have, is being applied. And for instance, there was an executive session for the Board of Selectmen last week on Tuesday, and it's starting to come out that this is about buying a piece of property. And the Board of Selectmen have said, well, we found $1 million to use for this. And so this is kind of late-breaking news. We don't know what the price actually is, the exact price. But this is a piece of property that the CPC has been trying to work on promoting the preservation of. It's a gateway parcel as you come into town on 113. And the opportunity was to work with the state APR program to preserve this property as farmland for forever. And maybe the CPC would have to help gross it up to a full price. And instead of doing that and spending maybe $400,000 of the town's money as opposed to state and other matching funds, we found $1 million we didn't know we had. And the town's going to go buy this now, apparently. It comes off the tax rolls, and it could end up being a cemetery or a school that's not supported by the head of schools, by the way, because it's almost in Methuen. So, how do you find $1 million when you're asking for $3 million in budget increase?
Very, very good point. I'm trying to find the picture here of so that Gordy can send to himself. I have an article coming out in Inside Lowell. I just sent it over to Teddy Panos that mentions all of that stuff you have just talked about it. And he's right, folks. This is a late breaking news, and I can't, if you know the history of what's gone on for this whole thing, you see where it's coming from. It's all driven by Joe DeRocco, and Joe was at a meeting in January when it was the farmer came up and said he wants to do an APR, which is a sensible thing and it's a good thing, right? So he's looking at preserving it for future prosperity for the town, because he has no relatives to pass it on to. But the bottom line is, the optics of this is just beyond belief. That how can you be saying we have all these budget problems, and now you want to buy a piece of property and then let it sit there, and we have to maintain it?
We found $1 million.
Where?
That's
Where'd they find it? Couldn't they have applied that $1 million to this year's budget? It doesn't make sense. And to me, the whole thing. Did you get it?
It's still coming.
It's coming up. I got a picture of the proper farm. But the bottom line is, where did they find the money? So I think they were looking at the American Rescue Act money, which we've got about $1 million of that somewhere. I don't know where it is in the budget. I don't exactly know where they list it. But I don't think they can use it for that. That's $1 million. Then you could use CPC money, but then you couldn't build anything on it, and you couldn't sell it, and it would have to be open space, which is a preferable thing in good times, right? And like you said, it's a gateway property. Do you want a DPW building there? Because Ann also said during that meeting that she was looking at that property for a few years now as a possible municipal use. So what are you talking about, DPW? Or, like you said, a cemetery, because she wanted to put the cemetery at Beaverbrook Farm, which was an asinine, just an asinine use of that. So
look, on a bigger picture, though, I mean, the town budget, we've been dealing with Proposition 2.5 since 1982. And it's a very simple mathematical model where you get 2.5% more each year, plus new growth. And if you want to do anything outside of that amount of your budget, you're taking a bet. So if you spend state revenues, state grants, money from the federal government, and you spend it on recurring expenses, you're betting that it's not going to catch up with you. And what's happened here is it's caught up with us. So they took a bunch of bets, and now they're asking the town residents to pay off those bets.
Right. And you can't go to first of all, I don't think an override for operating expenses will pass the muster in Dracut. It never has, and I don't think it's going to be now, especially where you're touting all these problems that you have. And you said an interesting thing in the last candidates night, which raised my ears up, and you were absolutely right. You said that the town budget maybe needs a reset.
A reset. So, in private industry, that's where I've been for the last 40 years. It doesn't matter if you're Oracle or IBM, every few years you go through, and sometimes even when things are going really well, they have reductions and they trim things and they prune programs. And it's really, like pruning an apple tree. It's how you increase the overall efficiency of the organization. I'm not for, I think it's a terrible idea to bring in especially safety services employees that take, a year just to get them productive as members of the forces and laying them off. And certainly the schools are under stress. I'd really like to come back to schools. But we need to do a reset, just as we did in 2011, set things back to where we can afford what we're doing. And then, if we want to take future bets, make them with this idea that Proposition 2.5 basically sets the high water limit. And here's what I think that Massachusetts towns sometimes don't fully understand is, if you want to do more than what you can afford on Proposition 2.5, then you have to put together a plan and go to the voters. When we went from a volunteer fire department, which was like my first year in Dracut, to a full-time fire department, that should have been that's outside of inflation, that's outside of 2.5. We should go with, funding that in an efficient, sustainable way. that's really the first time the town kind of started wandering into spending funds that we couldn't guarantee would be there next year.
Yeah, Phil, do you have any questions at this point?
No, just to go back to the proper farm, and I think it comes down to something that you had said on Saturday Morning Live with Warren Shaw, that there seems to be on the Board of Selectmen a majority that will vote adversely for the town of Dracut, just so somebody that they're not involved with has a good idea and want to see it fail.
It's a bizarre situation. I mean, I would bring up, for instance, the town charter. I was sitting in that meeting, and it was like the Twilight Zone. I can't even describe it, and it was so painful to have to sit there and not say anything,
Right.
because we had the town attorney say, "You have to do it this way. There's no wiggle room." That's quote unquote. And then we decided to do it the way the town manager wanted to do it, and apparently 3 out of 5 of the current Board of Selectmen wanted to do it.
Well, they've nickeled and dimed that changes to the charter through a charter review mainly by the political sources in town. And, you know, back when I was on the board, and I keep referring back to that because I've been out for so long now, maybe 15 years or so, people forget that I was one of those that was brought up the charter issue and said, the charter says we need to review it because it's over 10 years old. And at that point, it was almost 30 years old. So, but it calls for a charter commission that's elected by the people and run by the people and then proposed to the town, and the town fathers and the town votes on it on the ballot. That's
Of the
it's
citizens,
a people's
yes.
document, you know? But the town hall and the current established leadership, headed by Joe DeRocco and the 3, they don't want control to be lost. They don't want to lose control.
So it's bizarre because I didn't know all the history of, when the charter may have been rewritten so that we could override an agreed upon process for our next town manager,
Yep.
our current town manager, to actually be enabled to go from being the town accountant to the town manager. Never heard of that, but that's obviously the power that a political establishment can exercise in rewriting our charter that a citizens committee would be very unlikely to do.
So what Don is talking about there is, at the time when Dennis Piendak was leaving, Joe DeRocco was trying to change the charter to allow someone in town who was an assistant manager or accountant to be able to be appointed. The charter originally had, and the forethought of those people who did the charter commission were very smart, in my opinion. They prohibited anybody because they wanted to prevent the political process to seep into the choice of the manager, because the manager should not be political. So when I left the board, they had another charter review, which was among the board members, and they went to the legislature and they changed the charter to allow someone like Ann Vandal to become the manager. And the rest is history.
Yeah,
You know how that
they
process
essentially
went.
reduced the requirements. So originally, I think the candidate needed to be a town manager for a number of years.
Yep.
So they denigrated that to
And or.
an assistant town manager, and then they took out the provision that it couldn't be somebody currently employed by the
Right.
town of Dracut.
Right. So, how do you feel, that's a good segue, by the way, how do you feel about what the process should be for a new manager? You're going to be facing it if you're elected, because she has already said that she's going to be gone in a couple of years. So.
It is a key reason why I've said this is the most important selectman's position in 10 years, easy. I totally am in favor of the process we were using the last time and then abandoned in the final moments, despite the fact that we had folks like a professional headhunter who had volunteered to be on the board, driving the whole process. And then there were phone calls made, and it was given to somebody who didn't even make the final list.
Well, Phil was the chairman of that committee.
So,
So,
Yeah, I mean, I would just say that,
would you disagree?
no, absolutely not. The committee was put together, one appointment from each of the selectmen. So you had people like Charlie Canavis, you had John Crowley, Joe Wilkie, myself, and Patricia Patnod, I believe. I think Patnod was the last name. A very good committee that focused on hand what the task were. Select the best candidate out of the list that you have. I mean, as a matter of fact, I'm very proud that nothing leaked out of that committee until a letter was sent to the selectmen. These are the 4 candidates that we think you should be using.
And then irrational happened, right?
right. Then the political process took over. And it was right around during COVID, and not a lot of people were paying attention.
So gentlemen, another thing that occurred to me during the debate is that how long has Dracut been talking about we need economic development? And so I'm very different from my other 2 candidates that are running. And one of the big differences is over my career, I have been in well over half of the Fortune 500 headquarters of companies in America. And that's what I did, is I sold Oracle technology, or I licensed their intellectual property to companies like, GE and Weyerhaeuser and, Apple and Google. And so I know these companies. I'm a certified cloud architect. I know what it means to bring data centers in, for instance, to town. And so my competitors don't have that background. And, I would like to be the selectman candidate that solves this problem about Dracut's tax base once and for all, once and forever. And I think I've got the right skills. I'm very comfortable sitting in a boardroom at a Fortune 500 company and presenting and trying to sell the town.
Well, you're right about how long we've been talking about economic development. And like I said before, and I hate to pat myself on the back, but do you know who was the guy who started the Economic Development Committee, who proposed it?
I'm going to go with one of the 3 here.
I can't pat myself on the back enough.
Yeah,
but I was the guy that did that.
It was recognized 40 years ago that
Yeah.
we needed a change in our tax
Exactly,
base.
exactly. And
And split tax rates are not going to solve the problem when
No.
you have 8%, industrial commercial,
right,
and
right.
most of that's pizza shops.
Exactly, and that's what they have touted as economic development. Of course, I got criticized for criticizing the economic development planner for ribbon cutting, right?
I'll make a commitment to avoid ribbon cutting ceremonies that don't involve increases of due to companies coming into town over a $500,000 per year tax bump.
Well, that's certainly the right move to make, because all this glit and glitter doesn't put anything in the tax coffers.
Nothing.
So we have about 8 minutes left, right? And
Sure.
I wanted to segue a little bit to the schools. How do you feel about schools, and what do you think is facing them as problems and budgetary problems, even though we have gone beyond net school spending, even in this troubled budget?
Yeah, I mean, look, I can't emphasize the criticality of having really good schools. I'm the product of public school education from Malden High School to UMass Lowell. And it's critical that we have good schools. So, yet I look at most of the people in town who are like talking about making our schools better. They go on this point of we just need more money. And so in 40 years of living in Dracut, I've often told people we actually do an awesome job in our schools. we're in the bottom 10% of funding, and we're well above average in terms of performance. And that's like, I'm an efficiency engineer, so that's perfect.
Mm-hmm.
And I've noticed that the numbers are coming down a little in the last few years, It turns out that COVID had a major impact on us. And here's what I noticed from the last school committee, or 2 school committee meetings ago, was when we were talking about the numbers, a huge part of the number, the bump down, can be attributed to 2 things. One is we have a lot of students that just aren't showing up for school, and then they come in and they take the test, and our numbers suffer. I know this sounds like elementary, but we need to get kids to school in order to educate them. And the second point is, I really think that you can get a great education at Dracut schools, and we need to market that, because right now we're being outmarketed by the Voc and charter schools who are attracting our students away from Dracut because, in part, they're not charging bus fees and athletic fees. And so I would rather see us, redirect taxes to getting rid of fees at the school and cut this recursive function where we get less funds for Dracut schools because we have to pay more dollars for other schools, and solve this problem that Dracut has great schools. If we can get the students in there, we can start putting up well above average numbers again, and we can stop this erosion of students going to other schools because they think ours aren't as good when they are.
What do you think about Murphy Farm? Change gears a little bit here. Murphy Farm.
Yeah, I'm horrified at this. I think I have told the CARD organization that their description of Citizens Against Reckless Development is one of the most astute marketing terms I have ever heard in my life. Because that's it. We're not anti-development. I'm not anti-development. I am for, managed development, and development that fits inside, an organic growth curve that won't break Dracut Town services. This threatens to break the town. I mean, this could literally drive the town into bankruptcy, in 5 years. And so I am completely dismayed that our town management, and when I say that, I mean Board of Selectmen and the town manager, our town management seems to have been faintly objecting and strongly supporting the 40B. And I think that they've been telling our town legal counsel, including alleged development specialists like Karis North, to make sure we don't get sued, as opposed to doing anything controversial, like trying to move this development to something that's appropriate for where it's being built. And that's what I would ask the town council to work with the attorney that CARD has hired, and to figure out a strategy for how we can make this something that the town can actually live with. And right now, we can't live with it.
Well, you see, this is what happens when you get a political manager and not a professional manager. And unfortunately for Ann, and I like Ann as a person, and
Me too.
People try to stay away from mentioning the names and what have you. I like Ann as a person, as an individual, but she's out of her league. She's way out of her league, and we're paying her top dollar. And this is all driven by the political establishment in Dracut's current, political situation. I'd love to have you come back on. We're out of time already, and we got another candidate waiting in line to come on. But we'd love to have you back again. If you want to come back, we'll talk about that in the future. But before you go, I want you to look right into that camera, straight ahead, and tell the people why you should be voting for you. They should be voting for you.
Well, thank you very much, John. My name's Don Plummer. I'm voting for myself in the next Board of Selectmen's meeting. So I'm a candidate that's very different from the other 2 candidates running for Board of Selectmen, and I'm not for raising anyone's taxes in town. Please consider voting for me on May 4th. Thank you.
Well, Don, thank you very much for joining us today. and we look forward to having you again. As we segue out and bring our next candidate in, we have a couple of video to fill in, right?
Yes.
Gordy?
Do you want to?
Yeah, throw that out there. This
Do you
is
want
the-
to preface this?
This
how
video-
good of situation we're in?
This
here?
is a video that was only a year ago in April and May that was put out for a candidate for re-election. The chairman of the board put this video out saying that everything is rosy in Dracut and
Keep it
we're
the way
heading
it
in the
is.
right, keep the momentum going, and the financial picture was good. A month later, they started talking about, month after the election, they started talking about budget deficits. Thanks again, Don, for coming in.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Dracut is in great shape right now, and we need to make sure we stay on the right track. I'm Allison Genest, and I'm running for re-election to the Dracut Board of Selectmen. We have strong leadership at Town Hall. Town finances are in good condition, and capital improvement projects are being tackled all over town. I'm asking for your vote to keep the positive momentum. As a selectman, in collaboration with my colleagues and the town manager, I've worked to keep Dracut affordable, strengthen planning and oversight, and to support our firefighters and our police officers. I've been an independent voice, and I focused on getting results. At my first meeting as a selectman, I kept my campaign promise, and I brought forward a proposal for the design and implementation of an annual goal-setting process for town government. That process helps guide the town's success. In addition to providing high-level direction for the town manager and her team, as well as ensuring that everyone's working toward the same objectives, that process provides absolute transparency for our taxpayers around what our government is doing, why our government is doing it, and how we're doing it to keep Dracut moving forward. For the last 2 years, I've had the honor of serving as chairman of the board. We still have plenty of work to do, and I need your help to get it done. I'm looking forward to talking with you and hearing your thoughts and ideas about our town and our future. As your selectman, you can count on me to be positive, professional, and proactive, and most importantly, to do the right thing for Dracut. I respectfully ask for your vote for selectman on Saturday, May 6th. Thank you.
And with us today is a candidate for Middlesex County Register of Deeds. And he comes from Chelmsford, and a very well-known name in the Chelmsford area and also in Dracut. There's many people that know Joe Reddy for his dad, who was a political figure in Chelmsford for many years at a radio show and was always on Saturday Morning Live, and great guy, by the way. I have many great conversations with
And
him.
an advocate for local access channels.
Yes,
Absolutely.
he was a big advocate, you know. So Joe, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate it. Gordy, John, Phil, and everyone that's watching this show. I really appreciate you taking the time to learn about the candidacy of everyone running for this race. It's very important. I'm Joe Reddy. I'm running for Register of Deeds for the Northern Middlesex County. And, I'd first like to start, if you don't mind, just telling people really what the registry does, because a lot of people don't know, unfortunately. But really, the registry is responsible for the recording, maintenance, and public access of documents, all land records here in the 10 communities that it serves. So you have, Billerica, Dracut, Dunstable, Lowell, Tingsboro, Tewksbury, Wilmington, Westford, and those communities, Chelmsford and Carlisle as well. Those communities are really serviced by the registry. So, my aim is to, essentially, bring a revolutionized registry that's going to be, have better tools and access for the public so that they can empower themselves to protect themselves against fraud. I'd like to really increase user searchability with the registry and ultimately create better access to the public outside the four walls of Jackson Street, and also improve language accessibility as well. So at the same time, I'm obviously going to have to simultaneously keep first-tier registry operations running and and provide efficient access and public recording at the same time.
Sure. So what sets you apart from your opponents?
Well, I'm glad you asked. So, one of the things that really sets me apart is my experience and background over my career. So, I have kind of a unique interfacing with the registry. When I was a young man, I first started with an internship with Paul Sullivan. I worked for the Lowell Sun, and Paul had me doing his producing on the radio show with Tony Accardi, who was his main producer for that WLH radio show. And ultimately, Tony Accardi was the assistant register of deeds. So Tony gave me a tour through the registry. That was back when everything was paper books. All of the title searching and exams were done through paper books. And it was an exciting time to really check it out and learn a lot about it. I then went on to work for several attorneys, recording mortgages and deeds and documents for them. And when I was graduating from high school, I started my first company called Horizon Mortgage Recording, which essentially I would go around to attorneys that summer, pick up documents from all of these law offices and go into Boston and Cambridge and record these closing packages. And a lot of the things that you learn when you do that is if you're standing in line for a long period of time and something wasn't right, you got to drive all the way back to Lowell to go pick up the, make changes and bring them back. So I became acutely aware of all of the recording standards that are required to make these documents recordable at the registries. Then I went on to Suffolk Law School. I worked there in their registrar's office full time while I put myself through school at night for free. It was a non-traditional career path, but I finished my bachelor's degree in business in the same 4 years as everyone else. But I gained valuable work experience. And so working in the registrar's office was a unique experience where I learned how to provide customer service, work with student schedules, transcripts, those things. But I got picked up by the Dean of Admissions at Suffolk Law School to go to the admissions office and be one of the people to implement paper applications over to online applications. And so that was my first foray into essentially working with technology and delivering a robust product. And I did a fantastic job there. I would then go off to work in staffing, with pharmaceuticals and engineers and things of that nature. But that's when I landed my job at Harvard Law School. And there I was responsible for the career services office and the administrative staff. And we there ran one of the largest interview programs in the country. And so what we do is I would fly in 500 employers from all across the country to interview these 500 students over a 5-day period. And you'd have about 11,000 interviews go off over a 5-day period. There was literally zero room for error. And so in order to make that operation run, you have to have all of the back-end databases put together. You have to have all the staff functioning, doing all of their jobs. You've got all of the attorney advisors that are working collaboratively with you to try to make this come together. So one of the things that I've made as a point to this campaign is if you go onto my website, votejoeready.com, I have testimonials, not only from my boss at Harvard Law School, who is attorney Mark Weber, he was the assistant dean, but also from Mark Kleinschnicker, who was a gentleman that I worked with at Suffolk Law School, and I recruited him to come and take my job at Harvard Law School when I went to go start my real estate brokerage. But they have left testimonials about my service there at the university and what I am capable of, because I think it's important that you demonstrate to the public, not that you just work somewhere, but what did you do for that employer, and more importantly, did they feel like you did a really good job? And I think that testimonial speaks volumes for the type of character I have and what I can deliver for the registry here in Lowell. My real estate background, being a real estate broker, is important to this role because being a real estate broker requires significantly more education. I know that the other candidates in this race have sales licenses, and that's good, but a broker requires significant experience and education in order to become a broker. I founded Ready Real Estate. I recruited on up to about 20 agents at one point. I've been responsible for building that operation, setting policies and procedures, dealing with back-end documentation and making sure that we're in compliance with state standards, and ultimately training agents that work for me. Lisa Pantuso, who's my treasurer of my campaign, she is a platinum realtor here in the greater Lowell area. I trained her from the ground up. She is a testament of the type of person I am that's able to manage and and mentor people throughout my career. I've also been a big part of the community. So if you go to Chelmsford, I served on the Economic Development Commission, the very first one that was created. And I also served on our Master Plan Committee. And I served with George Zaharoulis, God bless his father, who just recently passed away. Yeah. But we've done great things in Chelmsford. And you don't necessarily need to be an elected leader in order to make effective change in your community. Anyone that's willing to step up to the plate, bring creative ideas, can make that happen. And that's really, for me, the registry is a very special place and a place that I'd like to bring my talents. And I've wanted to do that for a long time. However, you know, Richard Howe has been the registrar for the last 30 years. And I think part of the reason people don't really know much about the registry is Richard did a great job. Richard had a phenomenal background as an attorney, as somebody that had service in the military, as an intelligence officer. He brought a lot to that office. And I think a lot of people look at the next registrar and they go, oh, I wish they were more like Richard. But now it's time for a new and you know, a new direction. And we've got 3 candidates, and you know, hopefully people can see my background not only as a business leader, but also having worked in an administrative background as something that will really fit the role here to really change the registry.
Gordy's got a question.
Sure.
So can you explain to the voters how funding happens for the registry and how you're going to deal with those budget pressures that are coming? Because I know you, in your opening remarks, you talked about new technology and things of that nature.
Yeah.
So how do you plan on budgeting for that kind of stuff?
Yeah, so I'm glad you brought that up. So the registry is actually self-funded through its own technology fund. One of my opponents talks about bringing in federal funding, state funding, local funding. With effective leadership, we can actually take the funds that are coming in and make all of the technology changes I want to make happen. And I'll give you an example. When I worked at Harvard Law School, we had a
Prioritize. One of those
words? Proprietary
okay.
software system that, you know, what I did was I said, we have goals and objectives that need to be achieved here. And what I did was I set goals for the vendor. I went, made sure that they accomplished those goals, and then they delivered for us the technology that we were looking for. That's really the leadership you need from the next Register of Deeds. The reason that that hasn't happened, why you haven't seen sweeping changes at the registry, Richard Howe would have done that. The problem is that he had to deal with COVID, right? He was moving from one courthouse to another. He was dealing with keeping registry operations going during a very difficult time. At that time, I think the back-end technology and the website kind of took a back burner, in fairness to what was going on at that time. We're out of that time period. We have a new leader coming in. That person should set the vision. We really don't need more state resources or funds in order to make the registry work. Those are your tax dollars. They can be better used towards other services that will help people. I can make the registry run efficiently with the resources that will be coming in. But it is important to know that the registry is a very vital service for the community. It brings in state transfer taxes, which amount to, you know, depending on how many documents get recorded in a year, you know, $15 million. You know, the budget of the registry is only like 1.3 million, right? But it does have its own technology fund. It does provide funds for community preservation, which I know you guys were talking about earlier. But I think it's really more of a matter of having somebody with a keen intellect and some creativity that can really, you know, make that office run. So.
As a follow-up to that, I want to get your thoughts on how fraud's happening with, I've seen commercials on TV all the time about people stealing someone else's deed to their home. How big a problem is that in Massachusetts, and what kind of things can you guys do to alleviate that?
Yeah, so this is one of my first platform pieces that I came out with, and you'll hear the other opponents talking about a consumer notification system. The consumer notification system exists, but it's not robust enough to be able to really help the general public. And you know, it would be my goal to basically go through and upgrade that so that people are properly notified. If you go on the system today, you'll enter your information. It doesn't send you an email to tell you that you're now connected to it. It doesn't tell you any additional information. So you're hoping that maybe the system will work. And I saw one of my opponents on an interview on the John McDonough show talk about, she's connected and she assumes it works. I don't want to assume anything works. I want to know for sure that it's going to work. So you should enter your information in. It should send you an email letting you know that you're now connected to the system. It should then tell you, these are the last 5 documents that were recorded against your property, so that you know you have the right property that's going to notify you when things happen. The other thing is, that's good for just general residents, but if you own any sort of property under an LLC, which many people do, or they own it under a trust, it won't let you put that information into the consumer notification system. So it really needs to be more widespread and effective for those that use the registry. You know, there's just all sorts of types of examples of that as somebody that's been a super user over my 13-year career as a real estate broker, I want to make some sweeping changes that will really help not only the general public, but the attorneys, the surveyors, the mortgage brokers, the people that really use the registry on a day-to-day basis to help provide better access to the public. That's really, I think, the importance of the next register. And as somebody that's worked with attorneys throughout my career, collaborating with them and servicing them, I think I have the capability to really, make it first rate.
Yeah. So Dick Howe has been an innovator in many things over there, as you said.
Yes.
Even before COVID, he was one of the guys that really focused on computerization and things of that nature. But from your background, I think you have a much more extensive background, and you're going to bring it even further if you are fortunate enough to get elected there. How do you believe that the resources that you have, the funding resources that you have, are going to be able to get that? Because $1 million can go by pretty quick.
Well, so if you look at like Mass General Law, Chapter 36, right, that's really what gives the register the power here in the state of Massachusetts. And one of the provisions is really that all registries have to have basically similar funding and technology improvements, right? So, it's incumbent upon the next register to really sit down with the board of all the registrars across the state and come up with creative ways to try to implement this technology. There's going to be a moment where we get to reevaluate the contract for these vendors, and that'll come up soon. And so when you do that, that's really where you have to let them know these are the critical pieces that we need, and this is what you need to deliver. Unfortunately, with some of these third-party software providers, if you're not goaling them, if you're not on top of them, they're not going to provide you any more than they have to, right? You have to kind of be, the squeaky wheel gets the oil, right? So you got to know what it is you want, know what it is they need to deliver. That's not really a funding piece. That's more of making sure you're getting the product that they should be delivering to you. And they're happy to just give you the status quo if you're willing to accept that. And that's not me. I'm not willing to accept the status quo of where we're at now. So.
Yeah. So in the political realm, it's a political position,
Correct.
Obviously, so you need support of the communities, and you have 10 communities. What sorts of endorsements have you had from current politicians in those communities that might push you along? And as a follow-up to that, has Dick Howe come out in favor of anybody? And
So just to kind of give you some background, I have managed many politicians' campaigns, elected officials that are elected now. The problem is when you start to range across 10 communities, all of us have been some aspect of those campaigns. And I know, like, for instance, I was a big part of Richard's campaign when he ran in 2018. Sakari was also a big part of Richard's campaign.
Okay.
So I know he feels that it's hard to come out and endorse a particular candidate, and I respect that.
Yeah.
And there's a number of, the Congresswoman is probably in the same position, and you can go all the way down the line. I don't think that politicians should necessarily be weighing in on this race, and I don't know that that's really the most important thing. I think the voters should really understand that this is an administrative job. It's almost nonpartisan in some ways, that it really does have a wide-ranging effect on the security of land across our community. It stabilizes our community's real estate values as a result of the recording of documents. So they really should just be looking at our backgrounds. They can go to our website. You can go to votejoeready.com. You can call me 978-884-6972. I'll answer any questions you have. You can call me now. You can call me after the election. I'm available for people. I think they should really just weigh and evaluate us based on our merits. That's really, I mean, if some big politician comes out and endorses somebody, I'm not sure that that really should have the weight and value as so much as what we have to offer.
There's pro and con to that too, because anybody that endorses you, you get their baggage as well as their
True.
their friendships, right?
And you know what? Listen, if people endorse, that's great,
Yeah.
but it's not something that I think will happen readily in this race.
Right.
I do think it's a great office to be elected, though, because I think it makes you work harder for the general public. Some of these government agencies, impossible to get a hold of somebody if you run into some sort of technical issue. I bet if you're trying to file your taxes in the next couple of days and something doesn't happen right, who are you going to call? You're on a waiting line.
Yeah.
You can call Joe Reddy as Register of Deeds, and he will make sure that we get effective change for whatever problem or issue you're experiencing.
How many employees are down there?
There's 10 employees right now.
10. It seems a little low on the numbers, isn't it? You need more down there?
No, in my discussions, that's really proper staffing at this point. Because of all the technology and the way that it's run. You have to understand that a lot of the documents are now electronically recorded, and so it's done really, at lawyers' offices across the county. And people will go through the simple file, they'll upload the documents, and then really the staff that's in the registry is going through and reviewing them for accuracy, making sure that those documents meet all of the recording standards, make sure that they have all the indexing on it, and then properly sending it out for the system to put into the back end.
So one of the candidates that are running for the office is a current employee there. Am I correct?
Yes.
How would you be able to manage, her if you were to win and she wouldn't?
You know what? I consider her to be a very professional person, and she ran against Richard, in 2018, and she went back to work, and no one ever heard anything negative about that. And I try to be as fair and as equitable to everybody that I work with as possible. So, for instance, when I come into that office, I have no preconceived notion about who should be the next, assistant register of deeds. I know that, Dick is going to probably be leaving at some point in the next couple of years. So, I would be looking to interview people internally, and she might be one of them. I wouldn't rule her out just because she was a candidate for public office. I think everyone should get active in life, and where she has some background in the registry as a clerk, it makes sense, right?
Is there anything else that you want to add before we close out this segment? Phil, do you have a question?
The only question I suppose I would have is, do you feel that the registry has enough visibility? I mean, to some degree, you could almost call it a sleepy department or organization.
Yeah, so yes, there's definitely an educational component, right? So, we talk about homestead and protecting your property against third-party creditors. That's something you want to get out to the general public. You want to talk to first-time home buyers about, potential fraud and scams that come out. Being a real estate broker, I always get the call from the buyer, even though I tell them a million times, they're going to get a document that says, you need your deed, pay us $110. You can get your deed for free by going to the registry and requesting it. They will send you a copy of it. So please don't pay $110 to some service that's just going to print it out, put it in the mail, and it'll cost them 50 cents, and you just paid $110.
Wow.
So there's definitely an amount of education. That's an important leadership piece for the next register, to get out there and effectively, communicate that. That's where I think my time hosting Town Talk and being on public radio and doing those things will be of value to the community. I certainly can get out there and let people know how to effectively use the registry.
So you continue to host Town Talk?
Yeah, so when my father went into poor health, to really give him a chance to really still feel like an effective member of the community, he went blind and he was in a wheelchair. I would bring him everywhere, and I would let him continue to produce that show, but he needed me to actually be the front person to actually keep it going. So, as you get older, it's tough. You gotta manage through illnesses. So I was there to help him through that difficult time, and was being a public figure in radio and TV my passion? No. The registry's my passion. But I was willing to do it because I thought it was important for him, important to keep him active and keep him in
So
the
Town
know.
Talk still isn't on, is it?
Town Talk, the TV show, was transitioned to a new host.
Okay.
And I actually run the Facebook group in Chelmsford called Town Talk, where we provide all of the same type of resources you guys provide on this show. And I think that that's necessary because so much of what happens is local, and you got to really keep people in the know. Otherwise,
So I'll give you an idea. You could do a cable show for the registry, as the registry.
Absolutely, and I probably would. I mean, it's more about we'll probably come out with educational videos,
Right.
and to come on shows like this because I think it's provides content to viewers in the area, and they get to learn about the
Even
registry.
if they just say, hey, I better go check out the website and learn more about it, right?
Well, the website's going to get totally overhauled under my leadership anyway, so it will have all sorts of informational videos and how you can use it, and
Great.
tips and tricks. So
Well, we want to thank you for coming on, Joe, and we'd like to have you, as it gets closer to September, to come back and talk again, and we'll be able to get you out here for the voters of Dracut so they can make an informed decision.
absolutely, I just want to say to everyone out there, I'm Joe Reddy, running for Register of Deeds. I ask you for your vote in the September Democratic primary. I really appreciate your consideration, and feel free to go to my website, votejoereddy.com. Call me, email me. Happy to answer any questions you may have.
All right, Joe, thanks again. We're going to pause for a moment and take a minute to switch out, and we'll be back in about 30 seconds, okay? Joe,
Thank you.
thanks again for coming.
Thank you,
Stay
Dracut.
tuned. Thanks again, Joe.
Yeah.
We send our sincerest condolences to her, as well as the condolences to George Zaharula's family in Lowell. Great
Chelmsford,
family. Chelmsford, you want to say anything about that, Phil?
No, again, just a wonderful gentleman, great family, very active in the community.
So, we're back here, and we're going to talk a little bit about what we just saw and talk a little bit about what's going on in Dracut, right?
Yeah.
So, what's going on? We got an election coming up, and we welcome Richard Silvio
Thank you,
back
John.
from
Cub
his,
reporter.
the Cub reporter. He's back from his hiatus.
I'm slowly crawling my way out of all the textbooks, and I am making my way back up to the surface.
There you go. So textbooks, you're in college, and
That's right. I will be graduating from Middlesex in December, and then I'll be transferring to a 4-year school for January.
yeah. So, and you've also taken a huge interest in the church.
That's right. I have been increasing my volunteer work at both St. Francis of Assisi over on Wheeler Road and St. Joseph the Worker Shrine in
Where has
downtown
that
Lowell.
brought you to? What is that? What kind of volunteering have you done there?
Sure. So a lot of it is things like altar serving and then helping out with some of the charities. And when they have events coming up, we've done a dance over at St. Francis. A lot of the skills and things that I've applied to other places like the American Legion, I'm kind of bringing to St. Francis and St. Joseph, getting them online, getting them,
Okay,
out
so
there.
let's jump back into the political scene here in Dracut, right? And what's been going on here. So we have a hotly contested selectman race. There is no race for school committee. Both Duda and Shepherd are unopposed, and
Housing Authority is unopposed.
Housing Authority, Charlie Canavis.
Charlie
That's right.
Canavis, great gentleman.
Charlie Canavis is a great guy, and I like him a lot. And we would hope that he would get reelected overwhelmingly, even though he's got a no opponent. But Rebecca,
What did you think of candidates, Nate?
Good point. Good segue. I thought it was much of the usual stuff that you see. It's kind of canned, right? And it's kind of controlled. There was no real going back and forth. I would like to see more of the candidates asking each other questions.
Correct.
There were a couple things alluded to by Josh Taylor, which we are looking into. One being particularly the use of emergency funds in the town being funneled to chosen people in town. So we're looking into that. We're going to have more on that by our next show next Saturday. But what did you think? I thought the candidates, I thought mostly one candidate definitely separated himself from the three, and I believe that Dave Martin did that, but not in a positive way. And let me just, for the record, say that we sent out requests to all three candidates, and you've seen two of them come on our show, Josh Taylor and Don Plummer, but Dave Martin procrastinated, and he waited. He went on the other show,
Yep.
and he's been on the radio, but I knew that he wasn't going to come on this show given who his backers are. And I'm sure they didn't want to expose him to any kind of questions that might not put him in a good light, right?
That's not very independent.
It's not independent, and it's certainly not a willingness to show that you want to include everybody in the town, even if they disagree with you, right? I think Phil said earlier today during coffee, you said something about inclusion and acceptance, right? About how they accept you as long as you agree with them. Until you disagree with them, then you're, you know.
When you agree with them, then you're bipartisan.
Right.
And when you disagree with them, you're being political.
Right, right.
You know, earlier this morning I was over by Hovey Square holding signs with Rebecca Duda, and I had made a comment that I noticed that a Josh Taylor person walked over and started talking to a Don Plummer person.
Yeah.
And I looked over at Rebecca and I said, that's a beautiful thing. You know, that's democracy, right? Because at the end of the day, the election's going to be over at some point, and you're going to have to work with these people. And I just don't think you would see that with a lot of the Dave Martin group. You know, you're either for them or you're against them, opposed to being able to intermingle and
they can be vicious. They can be vicious. So, and they'll say we're vicious, right? And that's okay, because we're pointing out the same foibles that they are trying to point at us. Look there's no one on this show that has been in political power to really affect negative stuff happening in Dracut. None of us. I've served on the Board of Selectmen, and I was never on the top side of the majority. I was always in the minority. There were times when we all agreed on certain things, but those are the easy things to get past, the things you all agree on. It's the things that you don't agree on that you want to come to some kind of consensus that satisfies everybody, right?
And I think that's my problem with the candidates tonight, is I think it would have been better moderated by throwing out a topic, for example. Okay, I'm gonna give you a topic, the town budget.
Right.
And then Josh, you go first. What do you think of the town budget? And then let them
Let them have a
interact.
conversation.
Let them just have a conversation about the budget.
Correct.
And Josh, why don't you start? Or Dave, why don't you start the conversation? And then let them agree to disagree or whatever. Or maybe they all agree, maybe one disagrees with the other, the town manager, what's going to happen with the town manager, and then they can have a debate. You know,
Right.
That's what you call a debate.
By the way, Dave Martin is watching, by the way, which is good. But
Call him, please.
The one thing that separated Dave from the other candidates is he's pretty much a status quo candidate, in my view. Would you say that, Phil? I mean, he look at, nobody's saying that Dave's a bad guy.
No.
Nobody's saying that Josh is a bad guy.
No.
Nobody's certainly going to say that Don Palmer's a bad guy.
Oh, good guys.
But there are bad things surrounding them, right? For instance, the people who are backing certain candidates, particularly Dave Martin, are status quo people. I mean, do we want to replace Joe DeRocco with Joe DeRocco? Because that's what you're doing.
You know, it was noted to me that during, this whole conversation of, who's backing who, it was noted to me that guilt by association is a terrible thing. And I said, listen, buddy, you're talking to the wrong person.
Yeah.
I've been persecuted on that very subject.
And so haven't I. But, in a lot of ways, people want to tear you down when they can't show alternatives to your plans, right? Mm-hmm. So they want to tear you down personally. And I have to point out on this show, and we do, and we get a lot of criticism for it, why it's not a good thing that DeRocco somewhat controls Genest and Kopczynski. They are the three controlling members of the Board of Selectmen.
Right.
And they don't want to...
When's the last time they disagreed on anything?
Exactly. And they certainly don't want to make the two outsiders, Heather Santiago Hutchins and Tony Archinsky, look good, because that wouldn't be good for them and their crew, right? For instance, the code of conduct. There's the simple code of conduct.
Why would we have that?
What? They voted against it. You don't want a code of conduct.
Right. Why would we have that?
Well, Jennifer Kopczynski said it would just be a meaningless piece of paper.
Right. It's only meaningless if you don't pay attention to it, right? And you
I think
have
after that whole debate was happening, I happened to be at the Rockingham Mall. And sure enough, I walk in the mall and there's this big poster, Code of Conduct for the mall.
Yeah, exactly. You have it everywhere.
Yeah.
But for Dave to sit up there and say that he was okay with the process of choosing Ann Vandal, and Ann Vandal's doing a great job, as is the current assistant town manager, Victor Garofalo. According to Dave, they're doing a good job. Well, why are we in this budget problem? And don't give me inflation as the cause. And don't give me the excuse that the state is cutting back funds.
Well, John, you were a selectman, right? When they do the budget, are they doing zero-based budgeting? Because I don't think so.
No,
I think
they're
they
not.
just say this is what we had last year. We're going to increase everything by 2% or whatever.
That's exactly what
and
they
they
do.
move it over. So why don't we go to a zero-based budgeting where we say everything's wiped out and we start from scratch? Okay, we have a school we have to fund. What's the net school spending requirement from the state? That's where we start. We need police, we need fire, we need DPW, and let's maybe you and maybe to get an override. I hate to say it, but maybe you're going to have to cut something. Maybe you're going to have to say library bye.
Well,
you might have to.
you
and
might,
then
or limit the hours.
Right, or something.
And certainly you don't want to. Nobody here wants to see fire and police cut. Of
course not.
Or schools, for that matter.
No.
Or
but
DPW.
Are you telling me that there's no waste and inefficiencies in those departments?
No, but my point is, if they're going to push an override, that's the only place we're
Correct.
going. I mean, let's just be honest.
And it's not going to happen.
No, but I'm saying
you prepared
it's
for
going to
that?
be on a ballot
Yep.
question. But why don't I think for that thing to pass, you're going to have to cut something.
I think-
You're going to have to say library or shutting down the library, and you're going to have to get enough people in uproar to say we want the library, and then they'll go vote for it.
Well,
I think we have to paraphrase you, John, when you were on the finance committee. What's your plan B?
That's right. That's right.
Well, I think it's wrong to assume that when we say cuts, that they all have to be personnel. I'm sure there's paper being wasted. I'm sure there are lights being left. And I'm sure you can say, that's not going to amount to $3 million, but it certainly contributes towards it.
Well, the asinine thing is the major cut that's being touted in the current budget is shutting off the spray park at Veterans Park. I mean, how asinine is that? And hey, I may agree that has to happen.
Right.
But that's the major thing that you're worried about?
Right.
Are you going to shut off the spray park? By the way, that we just spent $1 million to repair?
I remember that, yeah.
Right? And we're closing all of the bathrooms at the parks and playgrounds.
Haven't they been closed
How
for
many
for,
years?
for years? haven't
We
they been-
built $800,000 bathrooms
Yeah.
for the parks, and we can't use them because
Well,
vandalism.
I think we did a whole segment on you're right, the vandalism.
No pun intended.
So
Yeah, exactly, vandalism,
So our solution to that is close the bathrooms and rent porta potties. Are you serious? I mean, so now we've still got an expense.
You
Absolutely.
have to pay to have them emptied and
Right.
have them on site.
You're renting them, right? I mean, those are the asinine things you're talking about.
No, but it wouldn't be the town renting it. It would be, at that point, it would be the softball association. Would have to-
Well, no, I don't. No, that's not what it is. It's the town is renting them. The town is renting them and putting them there. So, according to Ann Vandal, that's what she said. We're putting potties there, porta potties down there.
So much for all the impact fees on the cannabis.
Well,
Industry.
yeah, of course. That's money you can't use because what's the impact? You got to prove what the impact is, right, Phil?
Yes, and to be honest, I believe that's written into the original contract, or with these.
That the town agreed to.
That's correct. So that if there's an impact, then it needs to be justified by the town to the cannabis dispensaries. That these are the impacts, these are the costs associated with the impacts. Please pay.
Right.
And The other problem is how we're going to fix this budget problem. I think the biggest issue is, and maybe people are right, and maybe I'm wrong, but they want to keep Dracut a farming community. Well, if that's the case, you're going to have to pay more in taxes. You can't have it both ways. You can't say I want it in a big open space with a lot of farms, and because I like how it looks, and not be willing to step up to in your pocketbook and pay more taxes. You can't have it both. You can't say I'm not going to pay for an override because I still want farms. You got to give up one
But
to
I'm
get the other.
going to push back on you on that because I think you can have both with smart growth and smart.
Yeah, but if you're going to get businesses, what land are you going to put the businesses on?
I think you put them in certain farms. Do you know? I alluded to it when Don Plummer was here. Do you know that Old Dominion is here and runs a big trucking outfit on?
Right? No, you don't even know.
You don't know they're there,
right?
Because they're in the background,
right.
And that's what you want to do. You don't want to take proper farm, which Ann Vandal wants to do, and put it in municipal use. Put a school, a DPW, or maybe then future. What about just selling it in the future? If the town owns it, they could sell it for something else, right, Phil? Right. They could sell it for development.
I want to say on Proper Farm.
There. What's that?
I had a question about Proper Farm, and I was talking about that with Joe Reddy behind the scenes.
Right.
Would that be coming out of CPC funding?
No, they don't know where it's going. If it's CPC money, you can't use it for municipal use.
Right.
Right.
It's open space, housing, or something.
And I think we have enough open space at this point with Beaverbrook Farm and. Veterans
Yeah, the
Park.
town owns enough of that land.
Right.
The
Already.
better, the more cost-efficient way would be essentially to buy the development rights, essentially set up an APR, and then the owner of the property still has it. He can then sell it to another business entity that's a farm,
Right.
and the land will still be farmed.
Right.
And there are plenty of farmers that are in the town of Dracut that
That
would do
are
that.
interested. Yeah, interested.
Does
yeah.
everybody agree? Do they know? Do you know what the meaning of optics and perception is? Right? Do you? Do you all
Yeah.
know that? Okay, so here we are as a town. We're telling everybody we've got a serious budget thing and a budget issue, and we're going to have to cut. But yet we're still spending money like drunken sailors. Now I don't care where the money's coming from. I've been pushed back on. Well, that's CPC money, and that's American Rescue Plan money. That's all tax dollars. I don't care how you spend it. Somebody said to me that if we don't spend it, it's going to go back, and they're going to spend it. They're going to give it to another city or town to do it. I don't think that's true on American Rescue Plan money. I think that's going to go back, and some president and some congressman is going to be scooping up that money for whatever their pet project might be, and that's true in a lot of sense. That you don't want to give the federal government and the state government money back. I agree with that, but it's all tax money. Don't play games with it. The perception is you're spending like a drunken sailor, and you're asking me to increase my tax dollars.
Right.
That I'm going to pay as an individual homeowner. And, I asked Ann Vandal for the spreadsheet on the projections on what a $10 million override over 4 years would cost. Over 4 years, without the prospect of Proposition 2.5 automatic increases, you're talking $1,800 per home, right? That's the bottom line, basic. You're talking about $1,800. Now, place on top of that a new school override that they're going to be asking for. She also pushed back on that and said, we don't have a new school. I know we don't have a new school, but you're proposing one. Right. You just spent $1 million on a feasibility study.
And by the way,
Campbell
we're still
School.
paying for the high school renovation.
And
we're still, I believe, we're still paying for the Richardson.
But the
I don't think
optics-
that's come off the books.
No, I believe that may be off the books. If
It's close. Yeah.
But the optics, first of all, we never don't have an override going, right? We never don't have and a debt exclusion is not a really bad thing in good times, but in these times, there's nobody going to vote for a debt exclusion for $100 million. By the way, Phil, didn't they dispute my figure of $100 million?
They did dispute that. There was an RFQ that went out, and that's a request for qualifications to designers for this feasibility study, and the town has estimated the construction cost of this project at being $99 million to $144 million.
Yeah.
The number I heard was 125 million.
So you put it in the middle, it's about 125 million.
So the estimated average increase to taxpayers based on a $10 million override, that's not even including Proposition 2.5, is $1,840. And
Is that
that's
how
a
many,
$10 million
Is that over
override.
10 years though, or is that over?
I don't care how long. No, what do you mean? The raise over 10
Yeah.
years? No, that's in perpetuity. That's over
No, but
4 years.
it's not gonna increase the average.
Not
tax
on
in
one
one
shot.
year.
No, not in
Right,
1 year. The
right.
first year is estimated about, I don't even
I
know
think
what
that's
the
done over a
first year-
3-year period.
It's over a 3-year period.
Okay, so $600 basically a year.
Yeah, exactly.
And 2.5% on that every year
Yeah,
too.
right.
Right, and that won't include if they put a mattress fee in, which is a
And
user fee, so,
I'm not opposed to that.
but I'm opposed to fees, period, because
It's a tax.
taxes are taxes, no matter how you slide it.
Yeah.
Right? So do we
But-
have anybody asking any questions online
I
or
don't-
anything?
I didn't see any.
I see a lot of people watching, but, we also need to be talking about the fact that.
Angel wants us to host the debate next year.
Oh, we'd love to do that.
Yeah.
I'd love to do that, Angel. I've made that offer several times. So I'm looking at Ann Vandal's, report. I asked for it. She delayed it a little bit, but I finally got it. And she talks about, how the override works and all this stuff and how people get frightened when they hear overrides. Of course they get frightened because we're on fixed incomes. Many of our households here in Dracut are on fixed incomes. And it's an abomination that they want to go into your pockets again. And now they found $1 million to buy proper farm. How can you possibly get support of town people based on all that numbers, right?
Yeah, and it's adverse to everything else that has been happening in town. I mean, people are saying, we want to keep Dracut looking like Dracut. It's like, well, then why are you buying this property?
Yeah.
There's no plan for the property. So why are you buying it? I mean, there was a lot of criticism for Beaverbrook Farm on Mammoth Road.
Yeah.
Because what are you planning on doing with it?
And they
Right.
still don't know what.
And
it's-
there's still a lot of debate about what's happening there.
And it's going to cost us $900,000 for a driveway. And they're going to say, well, it's already in CPC money. We're just going to, spend it out of the $8 million we have for CPC money. Well, it's still tax dollars.
And could that money have been utilized better elsewhere?
Now, I'm going to ask you this, Phil. There's been talk bandied about eliminating or reducing the CPC fund, the percentage. The last time that brought up, that backfired and it got increased. Do you remember that?
Yes.
Right? So, and I don't think that the CPC is a bad program if it's used properly.
Right.
And you time it properly. You don't bring out that you're going to spend $1 million on a driveway when you're asking taxpayers who don't care where the money comes from, the perception, again, that's that word in optics, that you're spending $1 million on a driveway.
Yeah.
When you're going to be laying off some fire or police or school teacher or whatever, because the administrators aren't going to get off. You can't give the superintendent of schools a 12% pay raise from one year to the next when you have a budget issue. I mean, and don't tell me you didn't know that. Don't tell me that someone didn't know that there's a budget issue in town. Don't tell me that. That's disingenuous.
According to our chairman, everything was just going
Well, yeah,
well.
and we should talk about that for a minute because we're getting down to 4 minutes. Here she is. Do you really trust her and her husband, who are full on behind Dave Martin, as is Joe DeRocco? They said everything was rosy last April, 3 weeks before the election. You saw the video.
Yep.
You saw his Dracut Minute, where he says everything, don't let the other side get in control. Well, you know what? It's time for someone to come here with a level head and smack some smart thoughts into the heads of people who are running the town, because this is ridiculous what's going on. She says everything's rosy in April. May 4th comes, she gets reelected. At the end of the May, the tri-board meeting is talking about budget problems.
Yeah, and the sky is falling.
And the
all of a
sky
sudden.
is falling.
You know,
that-
if we assume that they're right for a minute, that the issues we're having in Dracut is purely because of federal and state, policy or inflation. Let's assume they're right. Mm-hmm. You're going to tell me that last year you didn't see that coming?
Right.
Were we not dealing with inflation and horrible policies last year as we are this year?
Every year you have inflation.
Every year.
Every year you talk about it. And why did you not see it if you didn't see it? Did you just ignore it and think that the state's going to dip into the $8 billion they have?
And that's the one thing I really liked about Don Plummer is that he has that connection with large companies. So if we do want to go out for economic development, and if he doesn't win selectman, I hope that he would get on some kind of economic development committee where he could make, use some of his contacts. We've been talking about this for the last few shows.
Right.
About bringing in a data center, artificial intelligence data center into Dracut. I mean, huge amounts.
I think he would be a great economic developer, period.
Yeah, I like Don Plummer's approach, and a lot of people will like his approach because he seems a little laid back and more methodical about his thoughts on different things. But I don't think this is a time, I think we need somebody that's going to stand up to these people, that's going to go in there and say, no. I'm not sure if he's got that fight.
That will bang their fist on them.
I don't think I think Josh is more of that type of a person. He's not as polished. I'll grant you that, and I've had discussions about that many times. But I think he's more connected with his ability to maybe move things and reason things. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, just his experience as a general contractor. It's like things need to get done.
Right.
Okay, let's hear all the information. Let's make a decision on it, and let's move forward.
I have not publicly stated who I'm voting for or who I'm in favor of because, quite frankly, I know I'm a lightning rod, and I know that once I do, they're going to start attacking me. That's the other side. But I know you have, Phil. Right?
I have, and I'm endorsing Josh Taylor. I believe he's got the personality for the moment that we need it.
Right.
I think in an article that I'd written for the Valley Patriot, at the end, I said, I find Josh to be that 3 a.m. call. It's the call that you have to make at 3 a.m. for somebody to help you, and there's no question. They're just going to hang up the phone, and they're there for you. Where do I have to meet you? Okay. I think Josh is that sort of person. And as I say in the article, Dracut, it's 2:58 in the morning. You need to make a call.
How about you? Quickly, how do you
Yeah,
feel?
so eventually I came out and I decided that I will also be endorsing Josh Taylor this year. While I think both candidates are certainly better than the alternative, I do think Josh Taylor is more of a approachable person. Not that Don isn't, but Josh has the grassroots style to his movement.
Yeah.
And he's definitely somebody like at 3 a.m. or, I could go shooting at the Sportsman Club and have a casual conversation with him. So.
And at this point, I know Rob Shepard came out last night and endorsed Taylor, and that's mostly, I think Rob's a good guy too, and I think he came out because of the police issue with the schools and the resource officer, which we'll get into more next week and when we meet on Saturday morning. And you haven't decided yet, but we're going to sit down and talk before you do decide.
Okay.
All right? And we're going to have a general discussion. So we want to coalesce somewhere along the line behind one candidate, hopefully. But I can't believe that the time has already gone by. We've had a lively show, and an hour and a half flies by. Maybe we need 2 hours.
Maybe.
I don't think so.
Marathon.
But we thank you for joining us today, and we hope to see you again next Saturday. And why don't you take us out?
Folks, as always, thanks for watching our show. We're trying to keep you up to date with all the latest things, all Dracut, all the time. And now with our new time, when it's Saturday and it's 11 a.m., it's What's Happening Dracut.